We'll see. Is everybody ready to go? Let's proclaim the greatest radio show.
Welcome, fans, to a Steelers off-season edition of The Spread. I'm your host, Jim Sella, here with Jay Dash. Going to talk some Pittsburgh Steelers free agents. A little bit has happened since the season has ended. They've re-signed Kobe Hamilton to a one-year deal, and they re-signed somebody else to a one-year deal. Do you know who it was, Dash? Can you remember?
I do remember them signing two people, Kobe Hamilton and...
Roosevelt Nix, wasn't it?
Yes, Roosevelt Nix.
Yeah, okay. So those two guys signed back to a one-year deal. I like Kobe Hamilton, and I mean, obviously we probably gave him the minimum, so let's see what he was making last year. He was making $238,000 in change last year, so you figure he probably got bumped up to about $400,000 because being on the active roster for so many games or whatever. A guy like B.J. Finney, Jordan Dangerfield, and Xavier Grimble, they're all free agents coming into the 2017 season. They were making about $450,000, so you expect Kobe to get around the same. Roosevelt Nix was making $525,000 last year. Again, you expect him to get somewhere around the same. So not very big cap implications when it comes to these two guys. But definitely, as far as Nix goes, a very important part of the offense. The Steelers' running game was the reason the offense was able to do anything going down the stretch last season, especially with that 9-game win streak that ended in
Are we already calling it last season?
Yeah, hey, it's last season, man. The Steelers' season's over. Screw the Patriots. But that's it. It was the run game. So Nix, you definitely need to bring him back, and I like Hamilton. And before we get into the free agent numbers, really, what would you do here at wide receiver? Obviously, you got AB. Martavis Bryant just applied for reinstatement, and as long as he's kept his nose clean, you would expect him to be back. So those two on the team, as long as Bryant, doesn't get in trouble for sure, you would say. And then you have Darius Hayward-Bay, Kobe Hamilton, Eli Rogers, Sammy Coates, and DeMarcus Ayers. You're not going to bring back all 7 wide receivers.
Yeah, you definitely can't bring back 7. I think Darius Hayward-Bay would be one of the first ones out, obviously. And then you'd have to think about Sammy Coates and DeMarcus Ayers. Who do you like more? I mean, personally, I think it's an easy choice, and I would take DeMarcus Ayers at this point. But it's hard to say goodbye to Sammy Coates just like that.
Yeah, I mean, he was a third-round pick. It's only, his second season. After his first season, he had that big game in the playoffs against, Denver. Everybody was talking how great, he looked and how he had all this potential, came into the year, blew up for the first 5 games, and then just blew apart for the rest of the season, was complete garbage, was alligator arming the ball in the New England game. Now, I'm not going to say just because of what he did in the New England game, you got to get rid of him because he hadn't played in a long time, throughout the season. But he just doesn't look consistent. He was a guy with, problems with drops coming in to his NFL career. And I don't think if we put DeMarcus Ayers on the practice squad that he would be safe. I think another team has seen enough from him that they would try to sign him away. So I agree. I think Darius Hayward-Bay, he's the old guy. I know he plays special teams, and I know people like him, but he's a guy I could see them letting go. AB has 1 year left on his deal. Bryant actually only has 1 year left on his deal. Yeah, Eli Rogers and DeMarcus Ayers both have 1 year left.
We'll have to see about Bryant still. It's not 100% guaranteed he's going to be coming back either. So
Correct.
Sammy Coates may be stepping into that role.
Yeah, if Bryant, can't keep his head straight or get reinstated or whatnot, that makes the choice, a little bit easier for Pittsburgh because he's the odd man out.
But yeah, I really wouldn't be looking outside the organization for a receiver, not in the draft or not in free agency, obviously. They'd never do that. I agree. But yeah, I think you just stick with what you have here in Pittsburgh right now.
In the draft, especially in the first 2-3 rounds, I would not go wide receiver. I would not go running back. And I would not go tight end or offensive line.
They might go tight end, and I know they do want to draft a running back, although I don't think it would be in the top 3 rounds either. See,
I keep hearing different reports because they re-signed that Carlos Williams again. His suspension was lifted, so now Fitz Toussaint may not be back, but if they bring back D. Williams for another year, I don't think that they would draft a running back, at least early. And I know there are reports talking about tight end, but it seems like it's going to be one of those things now every year since Heath is gone. We need a first-round tight end. I think Pittsburgh, they obviously know more about Ladarius Green's health situation than any of us fans. I think that they believe he can get healthy for next season. And with the amount of money that they have invested in him, and then Jesse James has produced a little bit and progressed a little bit in his second year, I don't see them going tight end in the first 3 rounds. Maybe another draft pick like Jesse James later, because they could use another blocking tight end if they don't want to bring back David Johnson, or if they decide to part ways with Xavier Grimble. But let's move on to the guys who are free agents for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So we have Lawrence Timmons, Jarvis Jones, Le'Veon Bell, D'Angelo Williams, Cody Wallace, Marcus Wheaton, James Harrison, Shamarko Thomas, Landry Jones, Greg Warren, David Johnson, Ricardo Matthews, and Steven Johnson, who's a jabroni. Now, these are the guys that are unrestricted free agents, the guys that I just named. These next guys are restricted free agents. You have Chris Hubbard and Ross Cockrell. Restricted free agents means Pittsburgh basically offers them a tender if they decide they're worth it. Other teams can match it, but then they have to give Pittsburgh compensation. So usually teams don't poach other teams' restricted free agents, but it has happened. And then we have a couple exclusive rights free agents: LJ Fort, Al Villanueva, Boswell, Toussaint. Nix was just re-signed. Anthony Chickalo, Kobe Hamilton was just re-signed. And then you have Jordan Dangerfield, Xavier Grimble, and B.J. Finney. Now, out of the unrestricted free agents, Lawrence Timmons was making the most money at $15 million and change this past season. If he comes back to the Steelers this year, in 2017, next year, whatever you want to call it, obviously he's not going to make that much money. Would you bring him back at more of a team-friendly deal? He did lead the team again in tackles.
Yeah, I think you definitely bring Lawrence Timmons back. It's not like they have a replacement in mind right now, and he's definitely not going to be making $15 million again.
Now, they did re-sign Vince Williams before this 2016 season started, somewhere in the neighborhood about $3 or $4 million per year. Do you think that has any effect on the Lawrence Timmons deal?
No, I don't think Vince Williams is his replacement. Do you? I mean, he had a good game, a couple good games. Was it this year or was it last year? We were pretty high on him.
Last year
for a stretch of probably 4 weeks, something like that. He played pretty well, and I think he is a good football player. But I don't think he is their answer as a long-term solution in the middle of that defense there.
I agree. I think he's a great piece to the defense, and he's a guy who can come in, like you said, give you 4 or 5 good game stretch. He can come in just a couple of plays if somebody gets nicked, needs to come out or whatever. And he's a little better in the passing game than Lawrence Timmons is. So I think if you bring Lawrence Timmons back on a team-friendly deal, you can probably take some of his playing time away. Not a lot, because he was still one of the best players on the defense, especially in the second half of the year. So I definitely bring Lawrence Timmons back. I think a lot of people were hating on him. We talked about it a little bit coming into the year that we thought it would be last year, because he kind of took a little bit of a step back after last season. But I really think he pulled up again and definitely had a good year this year, leading the team in tackles, had some big plays, got into rushing the passer a little bit again towards the end of the year. So I'm bringing him back at the right price if Pittsburgh can.
Yeah, there was actually a point during that losing streak the Steelers had this season that people were down on Lawrence Timmons, saying he wasn't worth it and he was done after this season. And then he went on a tear after that, and now everybody wants to keep him.
What about the other linebacker, Jarvis Jones? He's definitely been a bust as a first-round pick for Pittsburgh. We expected a lot of sacks out of this guy. Steeler fans especially want to see sacks coming from their outside linebackers. Jones has only managed 6 in his entire career. He is really stout against the run. He made a little more than $2.7 million last year. Any chance Jarvis Jones come back? And now remember, they declined his 5th-year option on his rookie deal.
I mean, there's always a chance, but I would say no. I think they're going to go with Bud Dupree. I think James Harrison's going to come back, and I think they're going to look at one in the top 3 rounds of the draft as well. And they still have Arthur Moats, correct?
Yeah, they still have Arthur Moats and Anthony Chickalo, whom they like both of them in rotation.
And how long does Moats have left on his contract? Do you know?
He's got 1 year left at about $2.8 million.
Yeah, so I think he'd be back. So I think Jarvis Jones has run his course here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I mean, Moats is making more than Jarvis Jones is right now, and he's definitely been more productive. Now you mentioned the other linebacker, James Harrison. He was making $1.5 million last year. He said he wants to come back. I think Pittsburgh brings him back. It's a slam dunk if this guy wants to come back. You just don't cut him.
Yeah, I don't think so either. We were talking about it a couple years ago. We were in the same situation. Should we bring him back or not? I always wanted to bring this guy back, and I stand with that decision right now. But like I said, you want to go into the draft someone that is going to take over his role the following season, or even some this season. He can split some time with him.
Now, what about the two running backs? You have Le'Veon Bell and D'Angelo Williams, the two top backs for Pittsburgh. Obviously, Le'Veon Bell had an MVP caliber season if he'd have been on the field the whole year. Bell was making just shy of 1.2 million. D'Angelo was making just over 2.5 million. This was the last year of Le'Veon's contract, his rookie deal. The Steelers didn't renew him because of the weed charges and the suspensions. I believe they're going to franchise Le'Veon, at least at first, to try to work on a long-term deal. Two questions. Is there any way Le'Veon doesn't come back? And do they bring D'Angelo Williams back if they can get him for around the same price of 2.5?
I think they definitely bring Le'Veon back. There's no chance of him leaving, I don't think. But I think they may let D'Angelo Williams go. He didn't play a lot this season. I don't even know how many games he dressed. I think there is a chance they could let him go, and that's why they're talking about drafting someone maybe fourth round or later in the draft to back up Le'Veon Bell.
If D'Angelo would take around 1.5 or 1.75, would you look to bring him back for that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like D'Angelo Williams. I would like to have him back personally. I think he's probably. I mean, you could still draft someone and keep D'Angelo Williams, really. But yeah, if D'Angelo would take a price like that, I'd definitely bring him back. I don't think he would, but I think some of that money Bell is going to be making now. Timmons isn't going to be making as much. Some of that will go towards Le'Veon Bell. I think you could put some of what D'Angelo Williams is make towards Le'Veon Bell as well if you drafted someone and made them your backup.
Yeah, the franchise tag, I don't know the exact number, but it's somewhere around 12 million per season, or 12 to 15 million I heard for a running back, depending on some contracts that go through here. So you're basically going to be taking Timmons' deal, giving it to Bell, and Timmons will be taking a deal somewhere around what Le'Veon could take or was making.
What was Le'Veon making again?
Just shy of 1.2.
You think Lawrence Timmons is going to make that little?
I think he'd probably get about 3.5 a year, maybe 4, but it'll be in that region, I would say.
Yeah, it's not going to be a huge number, but he's definitely not going to be making less than $2 million.
You would think they would keep him just above Vince Williams if Timmons is going to be the starter, and Williams is making around 3 or 4 mil per.
Yeah, I could see 5 or 6.
What about the offensive lineman Cody Wallace, versatile guy, making 1.35 million this year? If he takes a deal somewhere around the same money, I like the Steelers' offense. I like the versatility that Wallace offers. Although you can always find linemen in the draft who are a little bit cheaper, but Wallace is a guy who I am comfortable with stepping in and playing right away. Whereas if you get a rookie in there and somebody gets hurt, depending on where you draft the guy, you're a little worried about, putting in a 5th or 6th round guy in the rookie season in an offensive line that's played so well over the last season.
Yeah, really, along the offensive line, I'd like to keep everything the same. We mentioned a couple times this season, this is the best they may have ever looked. I mean, you look what they do in the run game. Le'Veon Bell has a lot to do with that, but they've been dominant in the run game, and Ben really didn't get hit a lot this season. The one thing you could do to improve the blocking on the line is get a blocking tight end. Jesse James has been knocked for his blocking, and we know Ladarius Green isn't really the blocking tight end. He's more the receiving tight end. So you could bring in a blocking tight end, but he'd have to be a receiving tight end too at this point, because I think Jesse James and Ladarius Green are a good combo.
What about Marcus Wheaton? He's a guy who the Pittsburgh drafted in the 3rd round. He's had some big moments as a Steeler, but never really a big year. Did the numbers the other day. He's averaged around 25 to 30 catches for around 400 or 500 yards and 2 touchdowns per season in his time with Pittsburgh. He had battled some injuries this year. I don't bring Marcus Wheaton back. He was making 1.8. You got to think he's going to make a little bit more. A lot of people were saying, he comes back for sure. I think you just let Wheaton go. You cut your loss, you save the money. We already mentioned you have some good young wide receivers that can kind of take his place. He's never done anything outside of that Seattle game to make me say, I definitely want to bring this guy back.
Yeah, I think someone's going to give him a chance as probably a number 2 receiver. But with the signing of Kobe Hamilton, I would think they're going to move on from him because you're not just going to let Ayers go or anything like that.
Agreed. I think you know what you're getting from Wheaton, after these 4 years. These younger guys, you're getting about the same production, and they still have some more upside. What about Shamarko Thomas? Made just under 800,000, pretty much a bust as a pick.
Yeah, I don't care what
Fourth
they
round,
do with him.
fourth round pick, I think he was somewhere around there, third or fourth. Was always supposed to take over for Polamalu, who's never really had a shot. He lost his job to Will Allen before he even got the job. So
Did some good things on special teams every once in a while, but no.
yeah, I mean, I almost would rather bring Jordan Dangerfield back at this point. When Sean Davis and Robert Golden were hurt, it was Jordan Dangerfield in, not Shamarko. So I think that pretty much says you can say goodbye to him. Great.
Peace.
Greg Warren, the long snapper, he's been here longer than any other Pittsburgh Steeler. Made 680,000. If he wants to play, are you bringing him back?
How old is he?
He's in his 30s. I'm not sure. I know he's old, but he's still balling, man. I haven't seen a bad snap in I don't know how long on special teams anyway.
Yeah, sure, bring him back, whatever.
David Johnson, the tight end, at 600,000. He's kind of been a recycled Steeler. They let him go. I think it was Arizona for a little bit. They brought him back mainly because he's a good blocker. He can kind of play that H-back position, but I think with Roosevelt Nix kind of secured in that fullback spot now, he's really kind of expendable, David Johnson is, if you ask me.
Yep, I'm not worried about David Johnson either. But like I said, if you're going to draft a tight end, you want it to be a blocking tight end, but he also has to be a receiver. So you have to take a beast. Is that Howard an all-around beast? We'll find out. Find out in later segments of the spread.
Please believe. What about the D lineman Ricardo Matthews? Made 600,000. We signed him away from San Diego. Yeah, I think he played well when he stepped in, but I think the Steelers are looking to get younger along that D line a little bit again. And I honestly believe LT Walton took a step forward in this past year. Not that he's great, but he's a good depth guy. So I would look to see Pittsburgh probably try to draft somebody. I doubt that they would bring Ricardo back. There's another guy, Steven Johnson. Most people don't even know exists, so block that dude. Who cares?
Stevie Johnson. Dude's a beast.
Let's move on to the restricted free agents. You have Chris Hubbard and Ross Cockrell, both making $600,000 a year. Cockrell, we signed away from Buffalo's practice squad a few years back, was a fourth-round pick. It's really stepped in to be a solid number 2 corner for Pittsburgh. I know a lot of fans keep saying, we need to upgrade there. We need to get a lockdown corner. They did that last year with Artie Burns.
Hopefully.
Give the guy some time. Yeah, right. But, I mean, that was the plan. So
but there's nothing wrong with bringing in another one. Let me tell you, moving Ross Cockrell to your third cornerback, that wouldn't be terrible either.
Listen, if the right guy's there, believe me, I'm all about it because the way the passing game goes in the NFL these days. But I'm also happy if they don't do that with Ross Cockrell's play. I don't think at any point in the year you can really say there was a long stretch of plays where you're like, oh, it's all Cockrell's fault. Dude's garbage. I think he stood up and he played very well, especially for where he was coming into the league. So if he goes into next year as our number 2, already takes a step forward in his second year. And, I mean, God knows what we can get out of Senquez Golson. The guy's never even played it down. So I guess you're looking at Willie Gay still in the slot, possibly. But I really have no problem with Ross Cockrell. Other people hate him. I think it's just the everybody always wants more, syndrome. He's not going to get 10 picks. He's not Marcus Peters, but he's solid.
I'm hearing talk that people are fed up with Willie Gay.
Yeah, there's been a little rumblings. Some of the fans, he got torched in man coverage in that New England game.
Right.
The other guy, Chris Hubbard, another lineman who can play multiple positions. I think they offer him something. Probably give him somewhere around 1.25 in that neighborhood. And now we have a couple exclusive rights free agents. We're not going to talk about all of them. Al Villanueva is probably the biggest name out of these guys. He made $525,000 last year to be a starting left tackle for a team that was one game away from the Super Bowl. How big of a raise does this guy get? And now I believe as an exclusive rights free agent, I'm 99% sure only Pittsburgh can talk to him and make a deal. So other teams can't get into the mix right now. So that gives Pittsburgh a little bit of a bargaining chip. But you got to believe they're going to give this guy a raise, right?
Absolutely, and he deserves it as well.
I mean, does he deserve to be paid as a top 10 left tackle?
Probably not. I wouldn't go that high, would you?
Maybe top 15.
Yeah, I mean,
Especially,
yeah, that sounds
in
good.
the AFC, there's only 15 teams.
Well, no, I'm talking about over the entire NFL. Obviously, it'd probably be a top 7, something like that in the AFC, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I believe he could start over half the other left tackles in the league, or I would take him. There are guys that I'm not thinking of off the top of my head that are beasts. Believe me, I'm not saying Al Villanueva is the best left tackle in the game, but for a guy that came in at like 6'9", 240 pounds to be 6'9", 315 now and protecting Ben's blindside, and it's just like with Ross Cockrell. I never really thought for more than maybe a play or two, because everybody gets beat here and there was never a long stretch of play where you're like, man, Villanueva just really can't hold his own. I think that offensive line, everything about it was great. I think they have a lot of continuity. I think Mike Munchak really knows how to coach these guys up, and I think they're getting all they can from Al. I would be careful about a huge contract, though. We both said maybe not top 10 money, but what do you think a top left tackle is getting paid right now? Somewhere around 15, 16 million, like the number one guy.
Yeah.
You got to think Villanueva probably falls in somewhere around 8 million a year, 9 million a year, right?
Yeah, how old is he?
Oh, he's young. He's only in his mid 20s, 28, 29 maybe. He spent a little time in the Army, so he's a little older than what some people would think, but I don't think he's 30 yet.
Yeah, I definitely want to bring him back. They have the money to do it, and that's probably what they're going to do with a lot of their money is just some in-house signings,
That's what I keep trying to tell people, especially on Facebook. Everybody says, we have all this money, 40, 41, 43 million in cap room. Think about the cap hit that's going to go to Antonio Brown and Lev Bell. I mean, that's half of your cap room
And you
right
still
there.
got to give money to Lawrence Timmons. I know that
Believe
15
it.
million, 16 million comes off the books, but some of that got to go back into him as well.
Definitely. Now, another exclusive rights guy you got is Chris Boswell. No brainer. You give this guy a deal, especially since you're the only team that can negotiate with him. You could probably get Boz for 900,000, maybe $1 million a year. I think he proved in that Kansas City game alone that he's got ice running through his veins and he can kick at big times. So I have no problem. Boswell, one of the best kickers in the AFC.
Yeah, although he missed an extra point in the final game of the season there against New England.
Yeah, damn it. We lost by what, 19?
Yeah. If it was 18, though, you never know. That's what set the tone.
What about Fitz Toussaint? You offering him a deal? He's in exclusive rights, or you just letting him walk?
No, I'm letting him walk. I'm going to draft a running back in the 7th round instead or whatever because he didn't. He was mostly used as a kick returner, and he looked terrible.
Yeah, and I've been hearing Justin Gilbert is going to get another look as a cornerback next year after being with the team for a whole year, and he's supposed to be a good returner. So I think him and Coates, if Coates stays, could end up being your return duo back there.
Or, DeMarcus Ayers, Eli Rogers, one of those two wouldn't be bad either.
LJ Fort, another exclusive rights guy. I think they'll offer him a deal. He was only making $216,000. He's a backup. Anthony Chicklow's another guy real quick. He's a fan favorite. A pretty good outside linebacker. And when I say pretty good, I mean rotationally. He had a chance to start. He didn't really pan out to what the Steelers thought. I think some people might like him better than Arthur Moats. He's younger than Moats, but I don't know. They're going to probably give him another deal.
Yeah, I would think so. But like I said, they're going to be drafting an outside linebacker too.
Kobe Hamilton, we already said, got a deal. Jordan Dangerfield, he was making $450,000, again exclusive rights, so it wouldn't shock me if Pittsburgh brought him back. Xavier Grimble and B.J. Finney both making $450,000. I think we'll see Finney back, but I think Grimble, he was already on the practice squad as it was, so I think he may find himself there again. Real quick, couple guys who will have 1 year left on their deal entering the 2017 year. You'll have A.B., Arthur Moats, Stephon Tuitt, Martavis Bryant, Dan McCullers, Eli Eli Rogers, Jordan Berry, DeMarcus Ayers, and Zach Mettenberger. I think AB gets a deal in this offseason. Some people were saying he might not, and that they might franchise Le'Veon this year, work out a long-term deal, let AB finish his year, and then franchise him the next year, and then let him walk the year after that.
Or franchise him twice and then let him walk.
They could. You bump it up by like 43% the second time.
You
though,
said
so
that
probably
before.
make
43% is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, the players' union, when they negotiated the new collective bargaining agreement, wanted to get rid of the franchise tag. The NFL kind of compromised with a giant raise if you get franchised 2 or 3 times. But I agree, 43% raise is crazy. I don't get a 43% raise in my whole career.
Believe it.
But you got to think AB possibly get a deal. Stephon Tuitt could possibly get a deal. And then I wouldn't give Eli Rogers or DeMarcus Ayers one unless you could find, something on the cheap. Martavis Bryant's not going to get one. McCullers probably won't get one right away. Moats won't get one. As far as Jordan Berry and Zach Mettenberger, I mean, do you really care? I don't. People were talking about, I seen a stupid comment today on Facebook, let Landry Jones walk. And somebody said, we need a replacement for Ben when he retires. And the person said, that's why we have Zach Mettenberger. Mettenberger couldn't even beat Jones out for the backup spot this year. Why do people think he's so good?
He's a beast.
He's beat is what he is. That's all I got.
Young
We're
gun.
not going to talk about possible people they're going to bring in. We're just going to talk about in-house guys today.
Sounds good.
Fans, questions, comments, anybody you think the Steelers are going to keep, hit us up on Twitter at bet_the_spread. Hit me up on Twitter at betjimthewin. Check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/betthespread. Come back to YouTube, click subscribe, tell your friends. Sad that the season's over, but we can look forward to the next.